Hello class, welcome to lab number 2, installing Ubuntu for Windows users and Intel Macs. This is the default lab. What does that mean? This means that for about 90% of students, this lab will work. They're going to be able to follow all the instructions and things are going to match almost one-to-one to what you see in the instructions over here. But there is a small percentage of students, about 10%, who are going to have issues following these instructions. Either there is hardware incompatibilities that you will encounter, or in general your hardware isn't powerful enough or doesn't match what is written over here. I have other versions of this lab as well for underpowered PCs, even an alternative to VirtualBox on Windows, for M-series MacBooks, the ones that have the M-series CPUs, and they are available here for you as well. What you need to do is to make sure that you're following the proper lab. So if you are on Windows and you have an x86-64 CPU, not an ARM CPU, this is the lab that you are going to follow because that is what works for you. If this doesn't work for whatever reason, get in contact with me and then we are going to go over the issues that you're having on a one-on-one basis. Now, my computer is not your computer. You will have issues that I don't have, right? Or things are going to go faster for you than they go for me. I say that so that you are aware that you need to start this lab early. It takes time. We're setting up a virtual machine, installing an operating system, and also modifying or installing other applications in said operating system. That means that you need to take time to do this, about 2 hours more or less, to be honest. For some of you it might take 30 minutes, but again, I cannot create a system that works for everybody on the same time because I will need to account for every computer that has been ever created, and that is very, very difficult to do. So in general, I provide in this lab settings that work for the vast majority of people. I have about 7 computers in my house with different hardware, and I have tested these instructions in those 7 computers and it works. But again, I don't have your specific computer in my house. So with the warning out of the way, let's get started. Presentations. If you want to get ahead of the game, if you want to follow this lab without any blind spots, I recommend that you read the presentations over here because they go over all the technical things that we're gonna do here. So it's gonna be easier for you to follow along if you already see how things are supposed to look like. That is optional because I'm gonna be doing everything in the video as well, and I think that these instructions are verbose enough that anyone can follow them, but always looking for criticism, and if you think that something needs to be clarified, then please let me know. Requirements. Go slow and take your time. Read the presentations. If you don't have a computer that meets the recommended criteria, please reach out to me immediately. That's why I want you to start this lab as soon as possible, because if your computer doesn't meet the criteria, we must find a workaround for you specifically. If your computer barely meets the recommended requirements, you might have a hard time completing all the assignments because I'm expecting you to have a computer that meets this or exceeds it. But if you barely are getting there, like you have a dual core CPU, you have 4 gigabytes of RAM, there are workarounds, but again, it's gonna be very, very difficult to complete the work on time because it's very, very slow. So let's start with step 1. So in the step 1, we're going to enable virtualization. This is the guide that you're going to follow to enable virtualization in case it is disabled to you. So let's check if virtualization is enabled in your computer first. And how do we do that? Well, there are multiple ways of doing it. You can download a third-party tool like this one over here, right? And that one will tell you if virtualization is enabled in your system. But you can also use simply the task manager in your Windows machine. So if you open Task Manager and you go to CPU, here it should say if virtualization is enabled. If it says virtualization disabled, then your computer supports virtualization, it just has it disabled. And you will need to follow the guide over here to enable virtualization. If it doesn't say virtualization at all here, that means your computer doesn't support virtualization and you must stop this lab and get back to me. And then we'll try to find a workaround for you. Okay, let's close that. Now, find out the hardware your computer have. We did this during the class, right? That was one of the activities that we did, figuring out how much of what your computer has. But what matters here is the number of CPU cores, the amount of RAM, and the amount of storage. All of that information can be obtained from the task manager as well. You can also get it from system information, or if you want to use a third-party tool like a Speci, you can also get it from there as well. You're going to compare your computer's specifications with the recommended requirements here. Do you have a quad core, 4 cores, CPU or higher, right? So for example, let's open my PC. So let's go over here and see the CPU. So my computer has 6 cores. So I meet the specified requirement of CPU cores. How much RAM do you have? So I require 8 for this class. Let's take a look at memory. My computer has so far 32 gigabytes. So I meet and exceed the requirement for RAM. Free storage, 60 gigabytes of more. Okay, so let's take a look at how much free storage my computer has. I have 782 gigabytes available. So my computer exceeds the requirement. I am good to continue. Again, all of this says is, if it doesn't meet the requirements, please get in contact with me. If it is close enough to this, again, go slow and get in contact with me because I'm preparing another lab for when a computer barely meets this requirement. I'm going to be using one of my older PCs for that. Okay. Do not wait for the last minute. This specific question here might be tricky if virtualization is disabled in your system because it's not easy sometimes to enable virtualization in your computer. So again, make sure you get that out of the way right away. And that's it. That is step number 1. Make sure that your computer is good to go to cook this rice. Now, let's start with the step number 2, creating a virtual machine. Before we can attempt to create a virtual machine, we need to get VirtualBox installed into our computer. You need several packages for this, several software. You need to download these 2. And you need to download the installation media for Ubuntu. So open this URL, and open this URL here. This is the VirtualBox download page. You need to download the one that fits your needs. So if you're in Windows, you click on Windows host. If you are on Intel Mac, you click on Mac OS Intel host. If you are brave and you want to give a shot to, Apple Silicon M1, I tried it a couple of months ago. It was all right, but I couldn't get full screen to work well. So if you're okay with that, you can use it. Performance is actually pretty good. It's just the full screen didn't work right. Once you get this installer downloaded, please download the extension pack, accept and download, and then move on to the Microsoft C++ redistributable. Scroll down to this part over here and click on the link that works for you. We are, at least I am, on x86-64, so you're going to click on x86-64. Then download the installer, so the ISO image or the disk for Ubuntu 24.04. All you have to do is click on download 24.04 1LTS and the download will start automatically. I already downloaded these files. Let me show you in my Explorer. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have everything that we need. Let's start with the installation. So the first thing that I want to install is the Microsoft redistributable for C++. Click on yes and let it do its thing. It's almost done. Beautiful. This requires that I restart my computer. And it sucks because I'm in the middle of recording right now and I really hate editing videos. That's why I just turn on the camera and record. So I'm just gonna click close over here for now. Now you need to install VirtualBox and the extension pack. So I'm gonna install VirtualBox. Hopefully it installs without needing a restart because I just don't want to restart the computer right now. And that's it. It's very simple. Please don't ask me to reboot. Please don't. Please don't. Oh, there you go. Aren't we lucky today? Okay, I don't want to start Oracle. I'm just gonna click on finish. And now notice that the icon changed right away. I'm going to install the extension pack. Click on install. Agree to the terms and conditions. And that is it. We're done over here. Now, what we're gonna do now is create the virtual machine. Just like we did in the classroom and in the presentation, all we have to do is make sure that we match the settings over here. So I'm gonna put this on the side and I'm gonna click on new. What is the name of the virtual machine? I'm gonna call this Ubuntu 24.04 CIS 106 and I'm gonna put desktop in the end. Right? It's always good to give your name a very descriptive name to your virtual machine because it will allow you to identify it quickly when you need to. We're gonna leave the location as is. You're welcome to place the virtual machine whatever you like. Like if you have an external hard drive connected to your computer, as long as it's USB 3.0 and above, you're not gonna notice a performance decrease. Or you can put it in a separate drive if you want, but I have plenty of storage in my C drive, so I'm gonna keep it here. The ISO image. Notice that I didn't touch this file. I did not open it. I didn't mount it. I didn't touch it, right? It has cookies. I don't care. Don't touch it. Do not open it. Just leave it as is because we're going to insert it in a virtual DVD drive that our virtual machine has so that it can install the operating system. So again, we're going to click here on ISO image, other, and we're going to navigate to our downloads folder where we have the ISO image. Click on it once and click on open. That's it. We're going to click on skip unattended installation and then click on next because we don't want to do an unattended installation. Now, the amount of RAM that it requires, as is specified over here, is 4 gigabytes. So that would be 4096 megabytes. The number of CPU cores is 2. It requires a dual core CPU. We're not going to enable EFI, so that's fine. You can just click on next. The amount of storage is 50 gigabytes. We need to give it 50 gigabytes because by default an Ubuntu installation takes around 22 gigabytes of space. The remaining space we're going to use it for us to essentially use the computer. Click on next and click on finish. And we're almost done. Click on settings. And over here we're going to start changing a couple of things. So in advance we're going to enable you can leave this disabled if you want because I don't think we are going to use it, but the default setting is setting it to bidirectional so that we can drag and drop things from in and out of our virtual machine. But I don't think we're going to use this anyway. In the description section, we're going to put a couple of notes about our virtual machine. The host name is the computer name of our virtual machine. I like to name it CIS 106, but you can give your virtual machine any name you want. The username, right? You're going to put here your username. You can use any username you like. For example, I like to use my initials, right? But if you want to call it Mr. Platano123, that I don't care. You can use whatever username you want over here. Just make sure you remember the username. And then finally, I like to type my password over here. Why? Because if you forget your password in Linux, you're cooked. You are just cooked. It's a pain to get it back. You will need to essentially hack it. It's just a pain in the neck. Just make sure you type your password there. Since this is a testing environment, this is a lab, this is a production environment, we're not going to put sensitive information here. I'm just going to pick a password that's very simple, something like PCCC. I recommend you do the same. Pick a simple password like 12345, PCCC, your name, something that you can remember, something that is very, very simple, right? Because again, this is a testing environment. This is not a production machine. We're just learning here. And we're done there. In the motherboard section, this allows us to customize the motherboard. I'm gonna remove the floppy drive because we don't need it. We're gonna leave everything as is. In the display section, we're going to increase the video memory all the way to 128, and we're going to leave it as this. We're going to leave that as is, no need to touch it. We're going to disable audio because we're not going to be watching Netflix on the virtual machine. We're going to leave networking as is because we're going to change it later on down the line. We're going to leave USB as is and click on OK. Now, you have completely set up your virtual machine. You are ready to move to step number 3. At this particular point, if you want to take a break and you don't want to continue with the lab, you want to continue tomorrow, it is good to stop. You have reached a point where you can stop working on your lab safely. Just remember that you stop at step number 3. Now let's assume that you want to continue with the lab. To start the installer, just simply click on start. And that's going to turn on your virtual machine and I will need to restart. Oh, I will need to restart. Well, it is alright because didn't we say that we were going to take a break anyway? So I'm going to pause the video here and restart my machine, and we're going to continue to step number 3. Isn't it great that we get this error message here? Because if in the off chance that you actually get that error message, now you know what to do. So let me reboot the machine and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, we are back. So let's open VirtualBox one more time. And let's go back to the instructions. And we are in lab number 2, right over here. And we were on step 3, install Ubuntu. Click on start. Okay, so let me exit from this dialog box. Click inside the virtual machine, and that's going to redirect my mouse and my keyboard from my host computer to the virtual machine. I'm just going to go full screen on this, and I'm going to change the scaling mode to make it a little bigger. That's just for the recording. You do not have to do that yourself, just for the recording of the video. Again, since I click inside, mouse and keyboard went to the virtual machine, the installer is going to start now. It's loading. Let me change the scaling back to about 150. Yeah, that looks all right. Almost there. And perfect. Okay, so this is how the installer looks like. I forgot the name of the new Ubuntu installer. The previous one was called Ubiquity. I forgot how they named this one. I'm gonna need to look it up. That is a good question for ChatGPT. Oh, okay, sorry about that, I just got a quick call. Okay, so here we're gonna pick the language. We're speaking English last time I checked, so we're gonna click on English, which is the default. If you have any disabilities, here is when you can set it up. I'm gonna click on next. This keyboard layout is English, it's gonna detect it automatically. Wire connection, yes, we want to use an internet connection. It says wire connection because your virtual machine is technically wired to your host computer, right? So I'm gonna click on next, and there is an update for the installer, so we're gonna click on update now. This is gonna update the installer and close the installer. We're gonna have to open the installer one more time, which is fine. Close installer. We are sent to the live session of Ubuntu. and we're just gonna open the installer one more time. Okay, again, click on next, click on next, click on next, click on next, and we're back to where we need to be. We're gonna click on interactive installation, and here in the apps that we need, we're gonna click on default selection, right? This is gonna install a bunch of other applications like an office suite and utilities, web browsers and things like that. The default selection is gonna give us what we need. So we're gonna click on the default selection. So I'm gonna click on next. Here, yes, we want third-party drivers, and yes, we want you to download any other third-party stuff that we're gonna need. So click on those two things and click on next. And yes, we want to erase the virtual hard disk that is in our virtual machine and install Ubuntu on it. Here's where we're gonna put our information. And you might be wondering, what information are we putting here? Well, remember the notes that we took earlier here? That's what we took them for. So, what is your name? Here I like to put my username, but you can put your name if you want. I just prefer to see my username in the login screen. If you provide your name over here, you're gonna see your name in the login screen, but I like to put my username there. For the computer name, this is what is called as a host name. I'm just gonna call this CIS106. And your username is gonna populate automatically, and here your password. Again, super ultra secure, not even the NASA can hack it. Does it match? Yes, it match. Yes, it's weak. Click on require my password to log in. Yes, we want to type our password to log in, and click on next. Now I'm just gonna close this out of here. The locale is gonna be selected automatically based on your location, so we're gonna click on next, and finally we're gonna click on install. Now this installer takes about 10 to 15 minutes to finish, so I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee, I don't know, play a little bit of Resident Evil, do something with my life, and I'll see you guys in a bit. The installation is complete, and now we have two choices. We can continue testing, playing around with the system, or restart, and we're gonna restart. When you get to this screen, simply press enter, and that's it. Okay, now let's click on our username, type our ultra secure password, and press enter over here. Okay, we encounter a problem. It seems like the virtual machine is hanged, like it doesn't want to do anything. In this scenario, we can go to machine and click on reset, and this is gonna force the machine to actually power off and turn on. It's like leaving the button press on the computer when you're trying to turn it off. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. Yes, reset. Let's try it again. Let me change back the scaling factor here to 100%. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off completely then. This is an interesting error. Let's get into strange. By the way, what I did right now was access the TTY and sign in command line only, right, which allows me to type in my username and my password. However, I did not like that. So what I'm gonna do is, let's go over this wizard real quick. Click on next, 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 finish. I'm gonna turn off the virtual machine. I wanna try it on one more time. Okay. Because maybe I was just too impatient, which is possible. I'm not known for being very patient with computers. Okay, let's try one more time. Let's see. Yeah, I was just being very, very impatient. Okay, at this particular point in the lab, if you want to take a break, you want to pick it up another day, you can, right? Because you successfully finish step number 3, the installation of the operating system. For step number 4, we're going to be optimizing Ubuntu for the class, right? We're going to be installing the software, you know, doing a couple of things here and there. So it's a good place to stop and continue. So let's pretend we're going to continue instead and move on. The first thing that we're going to do is run an update. Now, sometimes, as soon as you log in, like a couple of minutes later, the automatic updater kicks in and opens. If the application opens, you're going to close it. The automatic updater or the Ubuntu graphical updater looks like this. So let's click on software and update. It's going to look like something like this. If you see this application pop up, we're going to close it because we don't want to do the update using this application. Don't send, we don't care about that. We have 68 megabytes to update, so that's fine. Again, if this application pops up, we are just going to close it. We're going to open a terminal instead. And we're going to type the following command. Sudo, let me make this bigger so you can see, apt update. 2 ampersand signs, and then sudo apt upgrade. Press enter, type your password. Notice that nothing appears on the screen when I'm typing. That is suspected behavior. The password is being typed. It's just that for security reason, nothing is shown to you. Press enter, and I'm just gonna back out a little bit. Do you want to continue with this update? Yes. Enter. The update is quite small, so it's going to take a little bit of time, and we're going to let it do its thing. Let's go back and take a look at the instructions. Yep, we're going to do an upgrade. Here's a little GIF showing you what I did. And then we're going to move on and installing essential packages. To make the installation of essential packages easier, I created a little script for you. You can go ahead and read the source code if you want to make sure that I didn't put anything malicious in there. It's a very basic script. It's just install a bunch of applications that we're going to need throughout this semester. And we're going to get them installed now so that we don't have to deal with it later on. Yeah, the update is almost done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Firefox inside my virtual machine. Apologies for that. And I'm gonna open the guide right over here so that I can copy and paste commands directly from the guide. So we are in step number 4, optimizing Ubuntu for the class. Come back over here. Okay, that is almost done. %. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna copy these commands over here. You can do them one by one, or you can copy the whole thing. You can also click on the copy icon over here, whichever of the two of the three methods you prefer, and just paste them in the terminal here. Again, right click, paste, and press enter. Oops, I forgot to install curl. I missed a step right here. I missed this step. Paste, enter. There you go. Copy, paste. That's it. Now, while that does its thing, allow me to explain it. This is gonna download the script. He's gonna save it to a file called essentials.sh, which is a script. This is gonna change the permission on the file so that it becomes an executable program. This over here is how you run a script, and then this removes the script from your computer. As you can see, it's installing programs one by one. If the program is installed successfully, it gives you a green check mark and it lets you know that the program is installed. If the program is not installed successfully, it's gonna give you here an X and it's gonna let you know that the program wasn't installed. That shouldn't take more than, what, 5 minutes, probably less, depending on your internet connection. It isn't that many programs that it's installing. It's just installing this here. And most of these programs are very, very small. Okay, we have also VS Code. We also have Brave browser here. If you want, you can install Brave and LibreWolf. These are two great web browsers as an alternative to Firefox. Brave doesn't run bad on a virtual machine, so you can run it there as well. That is if you want something like Chrome-like, although you are gonna get Chromium installed in this script as well, just in case. I always like having multiple web browsers in my computers just in case. You know, that's one of those things that it's always good to have more than one. When you see this error message, you can just click on don't send. Remember this in the future, don't send. And voila, we are all done. Now let's go ahead and install VS Code. Again, we copy and we paste. Yeah, VS Code, enter, and let it do its thing. And finally, we're gonna do, I am going to install LibreWolf and Brave. Again, this is optional, you don't have to, but I am gonna do it. So again, I'm just gonna copy and wait until VS Code is done installing. Okay, VS Code is successfully installed. Paste, enter. Okay, now we're going to install Ubuntu restricted extras. Let's copy that, paste it over here. Okie dokie. When you get to this screen, press the tab key on your keyboard, press the space bar to select, move to the yes, and press the space bar to select. Let's scroll down a little bit. Now we're going to install the guest additions for VirtualBox. And there are two ways of doing this. We're gonna try the easy way first, and if the easy way doesn't work, then we'll do the hard way. Right, so the easy way is actually, let me just close the terminal. We don't need it anymore for now. We're gonna go to Devices, Insert Guest Addition CD Image. That's gonna insert the disk here into our virtual machine. We're gonna open the disk, and we're gonna click on Run Software. Click on Run. Type your password and let the installer do its thing. The guest additions are going to allow us to use full screen, which is the main feature that we actually care for right now, right? Because we don't want to use the computer with such a tiny screen over here. It's almost done. We're gonna need a reboot after this, by the way, so okay, let's scroll down over here. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, and I'm gonna stop right there for a moment. See, in some hardware, right, from some computers, VirtualBox is gonna start to give you glitches when you install the guest additions. you might need to enable 3D acceleration. I don't recommend enabling it if you're not seeing any issues, because the driver is not good right now. I don't know what happened with Oracle, but VirtualBox 7 is just not as good as VirtualBox 6. It's not very stable. So unless you have to, don't enable 3D acceleration. I have gotten better results with 3D acceleration disabled than with it enabling all the hardware that I have tested with. So again, that's just my advice. This is done. We're gonna press enter to close the window, and we're gonna reboot the virtual machine. So close Firefox, close the file manager, click on the notification area at the top, and then click on the power button, then click on restart, and let the virtual machine restart. Okay, the virtual machine restarted. I'm going to sign in. Okay, and now I'm just going to unmaximize the window and maximize it again. And boom, full screen. Isn't that better? So I am going to unmount this disk, right click and eject. Gunski. And let's just open Firefox one more time, and we're gonna go to CIS 106 again. This is a good stopping point if you want to take a break, or if you want to continue on a different day. We already finished step number 4, and now we're gonna go to step number 5, setting up Git. Again, we're gonna go with the step number 5. We're gonna set up Git and GitHub. So at this point, I need you to go and sign in to your GitHub account. So I'm gonna open a tab over here, github.com, and I'm gonna sign into my GitHub account over here. Okay, I'm gonna pause the video to sign in, and then get back to you once I'm already in. Okay, I have signed into my GitHub account. Step number 2, let me zoom in a little bit more, a little bit more. There you go. Open a terminal window and run the following commands. Now, at this particular moment, what I like to do is that I like to open a text editor, right? Text editor. And I like to copy these commands to a text file. And I'll show you why. It's mostly because this makes life easier. Let me disable, where are you? Here, disable spell checking. And again, copy this and paste it in here. Paste. There's a couple of more things we're gonna copy and paste. We're also going to copy paste our repository username and name, which we can get from here. You can also just go to your repo and copy this. And we're gonna paste it over here as well. Paste. Right. Now we are going to fix these commands, because notice that you have placeholders here. So it says your GitHub username. This is my GitHub username. So I'm gonna cut that and I'm gonna put it right over here. Your email address. Now my email address, at least for this GitHub account, will be this. There is a period here, and at gmail.com. This is the email address that I used to create this GitHub account. So you're going to use the email address that you used to create your GitHub account. And this is our repository name, so we're just gonna keep it there for now. Let's go back to the instructions here. There is another command we're gonna copy, which is this one here, to generate an SSH key. So we're gonna copy, and we're gonna paste it over here. Just put a little bit of space there. And our email address, we're gonna put it right over here. Perfect. Okay, sorry, that was another phone call. Okay, moving on. And that's about it. The rest of the commands we don't need to copy. Actually, you know what? Just to keep things simple, I'm just gonna copy this one too, and I'm gonna put it over here. And also the test command as well. And finally, the cloning repository command as well. Right, and over here, there is a couple of things we need to replace. See what it says here, your GitHub username? That's this, your GitHub username, boom. Right, colon, your GitHub username, and then your repository name here. That will be this, that's my repository name, right? Remember that I told you to call it CIS 106? That's part of the reason why. Now I'm just gonna minimize this. I'm gonna open a terminal and then copy paste. So let's start with this one. Copy, paste, enter. Copy, paste, enter. And now let's generate an SSH key. Paste. Over here, just press enter. If you want an extra layer of security when you're pushing to GitHub, you can put a password here if you want. But as I was saying before, this is a testing account. This is our lab environment, right? This is for breaking eggs. So I'm just gonna leave it empty. Press enter again, and we're almost done. Now we're gonna display that SSH key here, and you're gonna copy this, right? We're gonna go back to your GitHub account, and you're gonna go here and click on settings. You're gonna click on SSH and GPG keys, and you're gonna create a new SSH key. We're gonna call this SSH key CIS 106 Ubuntu desktop VM, and you're gonna paste it over here. Make sure this has no trailing spaces, right? So I'm gonna remove that trailing space. Make sure that it's only one whole line. Good. Add SSH key. That part is already done. Now let's move along and do this part. We're gonna do a test to make sure that our SSH key is correct. Here you're gonna type the whole word. Yes, the whole word. Press enter, and you should see this message here. If you don't see a message that says you successfully authenticated, you had a typo somewhere. Retrace your steps. And finally, we're gonna clone our GitHub repository. So paste here and press enter. And that's it. Now, if you open your file manager, you're gonna notice that in your home directory, in your home folder, you have a folder called CIS 106. That is your local GitHub repository. This should always mirror what you have on GitHub, right? We no longer work on Windows. Everything is on Linux from this point on, right? So this should be identical to your GitHub repository. Your GitHub repository is the cloud version. This is your local version of your CIS 106 folder. So we're gonna close that. We're gonna save this document, right? So we're gonna click on save, and we're gonna put it in our documents directory. We're gonna call it git commands bk, right? It's just a backup of our git commands, just in case you need to recover our repository one day, or you need to do some troubleshooting with me over Zoom. This is gonna come very handy. So we're gonna close that because we don't need it, and we're gonna continue over here. You have successfully set up your Git and GitHub account in your virtual machine. Now let's set up VS Code, right? And like I said earlier, that was a good step to stop if you needed to stop. So let's continue with the step number 6, setting up the VS Code extensions. So let's open VS Code. Just gonna put it here on the side. Put this side by side. And let's go to extensions. And we need to find Markdown all-in-one. Let's move this to the side a little bit, to make it a little bigger. Markdown all-in-one by Yu Shang. Markdown PDF. To convert Markdown files to PDF. Install. And then we need to do Markdown Preview Enhance. There you go. To preview our Markdown files. Now we need to do PDF preview, because that is going to allow us to preview PDF files on VS Code. And if you need a spell checker, you can install Code Spell Checker as well, right? Because we're going to be writing some documents here, so it's good to have a spell checker as well. But again, that is not mandatory. If you want it, you want it. If you don't want it, you don't want it. Okay, I'm going to close that. and I already installed the extension, so I'm gonna close VS Code. Next, we're gonna set up Gnome screenshot tool, and I'm gonna take the opportunity to set up a couple of other things as well, not just Gnome. So scroll down, and step number 7, setting up Gnome screenshot tool, right? And the program that we need is called Gnome screenshot. You already have it installed, so if you search for Gnome screenshot, you should see this blue icon over here. If you don't see it, then run this command to install Gnome screenshot. We're gonna set up a keyboard shortcut so that when we press the print screen key on our keyboard, we don't get this. Instead, we're gonna get Gnome screenshot tool. So let's go to settings. Let's go to keyboard. Scroll all the way down and click on view and customize shortcuts. Scroll all the way down and click on view shortcuts and click on add shortcut. The name of the shortcut is right here, Gnome screenshot. So you can just copy and paste. The command is this one. Again, copy and paste. And the shortcut here, you can set it to whatever key on your keyboard you want. I like to use print screen, but if your keyboard doesn't have a print screen key, you can set up a combination of keys in your keyboard to trigger this screenshot application. We're gonna click on replace here and close it. Now press the print screen key. Oh, what happened there? That's strange. Okay, so let's trigger again. Okay, I'm gonna set it up one more time. Gnome screenshot I. Yeah, that's the correct command. Gnome screenshot -I. There you go. Is there a typo here? Let me check. Yeah, that's strange. Oh, it's already open, that's why. Okay, that was a little strange, but if you encounter the same problem I had, just repeat the process again. That was a little weird. Okie dokie, you already set up Gnome screenshot. Now let me show you how to use it real quick. Press the print screen key, and here you can do the entire screen, a window, or a selection. Click on selection, take a screenshot, and select an area of the screen. Here, give your screen a name, so I'm gonna call it test, and here you can select where you wanna paste it. If your folder doesn't appear over here, click on other, find the folder that you wanna place your screenshot in, and then click on open. And that's it. That's how you use Gnome screenshot. It's actually a very, very basic application. I'm gonna set up a couple of more shortcuts here, just because I'm keyboard driven for a lot of things. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I just prefer to do it. So, for example, I like Tilix as the terminal emulator, and the command is also Tilix. And the shortcut is that I like to use is super and enter, or Windows key and enter. I also like Genie as a text editor. So I'm gonna type Genie, and I'm gonna set the shortcut to Windows key and T, so that when I do Windows key and T, it opens the text editor and I can start coding. What else is good? Oh, so web browser too, so Firefox. The command is also gonna be Firefox, and the shortcut is Windows key and W. That's the command that's the shortcut that I like to use for web search. So I'm gonna click on add, and when I do Windows key and W, it opens a new Firefox window. Right? Again, you don't have to do this. The only one I do it because I like I said earlier, I am a little bit more keyboard driven when I'm working on my computer. So I like to set up a couple of custom shortcuts for that. So I'm gonna close that. I'm gonna close this over here. and that's it. You have successfully installed Ubuntu. You have configured Ubuntu to meet the standard of the class, and you have set up your GitHub repository in your virtual machine. Now it's time for you to prepare your submission to prove that you actually completed the lab. Now, at this point, again, if you want, you can stop and then come back later to prepare your submission. You can just make sure you turn off your virtual machine the right way, and that's it. Now, how are you going to prepare your submission? All of this is going to be done inside your virtual machine. No more Windows, no more Mac OS. First, we're going to organize your GitHub repository, right? Notice that my GitHub repository, let's go back to home and here. Notice that my GitHub repository is organized in folders. It's nice and neat. There is a folder for all the labs. There is a folder for the week reports and so on. You need to do the same thing. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make a mess of my GitHub repository to mirror what you have. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to organize it. So I'm going to pause the video, mirror my repository to you, and then I'm going to get back to you. Okay, now my GitHub repository looks more like yours, right? Where I have all the files are in one thing. There is no folders. There is no nothing, which is a mess, right? Let's be a little bit more clean. Let's organize things a little bit better, right? And in my class, you are going to be doing labs. So we're gonna make a folder for labs. You're also gonna be doing week reports. So let's make a folder for week reports, right? You're also gonna be taking notes. So we're gonna make a folder for notes. And you're also going to have cheat sheets that I'm gonna give you. And you already have one available, so we're gonna make a folder for cheat sheets. You're also gonna have your final project, but we're gonna create a folder later because you don't have nothing to show for your final project yet. So now let's organize this. Let's start with the labs. So I am going to open this in a new window. There you go, perfect. So I got my labs folder over here. Actually, I'm gonna do it the long way, just, you know. So I'm gonna go labs. Here we're gonna create a folder for lab 1, right? And we're gonna create a folder for lab number 2, because this is the second lab that we're doing, right? And for the lab, remember, you did in your lab the markdown stuff, right? That was lab number 1. So what we're gonna do is that we slowly are gonna move the files to the labs folder that are supposed to be there. So the John Doe image was used for lab number 1. This was not used for the lab. The John Doe info was used for lab 1. The cheat sheet goes to the cheat sheets folder. The notes go in the notes folder. The resume.md was part of lab. The resume PDF was part of your lab. Resume.png was part of your lab. Slack and GitHub screenshots were for the week reports. This is garbage, so I can just throw it away. The Ubuntu.html, Ubuntu.md, Ubuntu.pdf, all of this was for your lab. And then week report and week report.pdf goes in the week reports folder. Now let's go into labs, and we know that all of these files go in the labs 1 folder. Now let's go again for week reports, and we know that all of this WR1 for week report 1, and we're just gonna move all of that there. Let's create a folder for week report number 2 because we're already in the second lab. And the notes again, let's create a folder. If you don't want, you don't need to create folders for notes. If you're not planning on putting screenshots and things in there, I recommend you that you put your notes in folders, because in that way you can add more files in there that are related to a specific notes, but that is all up to you. Okay, so now that our directory, our GitHub repository is organized, we can close the file manager and we can open VS Code. So let's open VS Code. And what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna open the CIS 106 local repository or CIS 106 folder, same thing. So click on open folder, click on CIS 106, and click on open. And it should look exactly like mine. Let me zoom in a little bit. It should look exactly like mine. Notice that it says CIS 106 here. You are always going to work inside your CIS 106 folder when you're submitting assignments and when you're doing things for my class. That is your project. Always open the CIS 106 folder. Because if you don't, you are going to have issues, right? If you just open the file, you are going to encounter a ton of issues and it's going to be very, very difficult to fix. So I repeat, you are always going to work inside the CIS 106 folder. Let's go back to our instructions. We did the organization already. And now we're going to create a file called lab2.md. So let's go back to VS Code, click on labs, click on lab2, and then click on the new file icon, lab2.md. And then all we have to do is copy paste this, right? It's just a little bit of markdown. Just paste it over here. Okie dokie. And now click on save. Now we need to generate these screenshots here, right? So let's minimize VS Code real quick and follow the instructions. Open the terminal and run this command. So we're going to open a terminal and we're going to run this command. Let me make it a little bit bigger and wait until it's done. Okay, let me make this. Yep, that looks good. Take a screenshot of this output. If but for some reason the command didn't work, simply run CPU fetch and that's it. Again, print the screen. We're gonna click on selection, take a screenshot, and we are gonna select the area of the window that contains the terminal. And the name for the screenshot is CPU fetch. .png. Do not forget the file extension. Now we're gonna click over here and click on other. We're gonna place this screenshot in our lab2 directory. So again, CIS 106, labs, lab2, open. Click on save. Now let's do the second one. Clear your terminal and run this command. Clear. And then paste. That's it. Again, take a screenshot. And call this a screenshot. Let me see what's the name. A script.png. So let's go back here. Script.png. Lab2 is already selected, no need to change nothing, and click on save. Now we're gonna preview our markdown file. Right click and click on preview. I can see both of my screenshots over here. I am ready to submit. Right click and convert the file to PDF. If you get any error messages over here, let me know. I have a solution for that already in the documentation. Make sure that your PDF file looks correct. The PDF file looks correct. You are gonna give me this PDF file in Blackboard. Okay, so now let's push our changes to GitHub. And this is a very, very important part because you're gonna do this at the end of every single assignment that you do for me. So you're gonna click on terminal, new terminal, and you're gonna type the following commands in the order that I'm showing them to you. Git add period. This is gonna add all the changes that were made to our repository to be tracked. And now we're gonna do git commit -m, and in quotations we're gonna give a message to this commit so that we can identify this commit if we ever need to go back in history. Lab2 finished, because that's exactly what we did. And now we're gonna send these changes to GitHub using the git push command. Done. Now, if you go to your GitHub repository and refresh, you're gonna see all the changes that you did to your repository have been successfully synchronized with your local repository. Every time you do a change to your local repository, push it to GitHub. When you are done working on an assignment, push it to GitHub. If you started an assignment today and you didn't finish it today, push the changes that you did today to GitHub and continue tomorrow. That is our workflow. Let's say that I made a mistake on my lab. I can go back here and I can fix it. Let's say I'm gonna add here some random text. This is some random text. I made a change to this file. I need to push that to GitHub again. So I open a terminal, right? So let me just do it again from the beginning. And I do git add period git commit -m added text to lab 2 and then git push, and that's it. When you go back to GitHub, the changes are here. That's how you're gonna work in my class. You always are going to have Git and GitHub synchronized with your local repository. If you have any questions, if you need practice, if something wasn't clear, reach out to me and I can make extra videos talking about this. Now, what are you going to submit in Blackboard? In Blackboard, you're going to give me the URL of this file. So you're going to go to your repository, navigate to where lab2.md is located, and you're going to give me this URL over here, right? This URL over here. Again, lab2.md, copy this URL, and you're going to submit that in Blackboard. You're going to upload to the same submission the lab2.pdf file. Again, you're going to give me those two things. I need your GitHub repository URL for this file, and I need the PDF file. And that's it. Please take a moment to read the special note number 1 and the special note number 2, and also the special note regarding the final exam. I repeat, if you have any issues, Slack me, and I am more than happy to go over anything that is unclear with you on a one-on-one basis. Have a good one, and I see you in class.